The chandeliers burn like 1,000 small suns, and the Victoria Palace has never looked more like a trap. 300 guests fill every seat. Silk dresses. Dark suits. Flowers bleeding white and gold from every surface. Crystal glasses raised. Crystal glasses lowered. The kind of event that gets photographed and pointed to for years, the kind people describe to their children as proof that a certain world once existed, and that it was beautiful, even when it wasn't. Except something is wrong with the air. The guests feel it before they understand it. The way animals go still before a storm, no thunder yet, no wind, just a shift that the body registers before the mind finds a name for it. Conversations are shorter than they should be. Laughter ends one beat too early. Eyes find exits without being directed there. The bride stands at the front of the room. Elena Vasquez. White lace. Dark hair pinned up with pearls. A face made for photographs, not for this particular moment. Her left hand rests against the slight curve of her stomach, just barely visible beneath the precise cut of her dress. A gesture that could be read as nerves. As habit. As something else entirely. Several guests are reading it as something else. They have been reading it all evening. The groom stands beside her. Adrian Moretti. 34 years old. Dark suit. Dark eyes that have never once fully softened inside a room full of people, because softness in rooms like this is a thing you pay for later, and Adrian has always known exactly how interest compounds. A jaw cut from something harder than stone. He is the kind of man that rooms go quiet for, not because he demands silence, but because people sense, without being told, that silence around him is the safest choice they will make all night. He is smiling. But the smile has not moved in 40 minutes. And a smile that does not move is not a smile at all. It is a mask. Worn over the face of another expression entirely, one that the guests cannot read from where they are sitting, but that Elena, standing 30 inches to his left, has been reading for the past 2 hours with the specific precision of someone who knows they are almost out of time. The toasts begin. A man named Enzo rises first. Wide-shouldered, red-faced, the kind of man who takes up more space than he occupies. He makes a joke about loyalty and the future, the kind of joke that only lands in this world because everyone at this table understands the weight pressing down on the humor, the thing underneath the punchline that is not actually funny at all. The room laughs. A little too loudly. The way people laugh when they need somewhere to put their nerves. Adrian does not laugh. His eyes have not left Elena. Elena lifts her glass, sparkling water, not champagne, and brings it slowly to her lips. Her hand trembles. Just barely. Just for 1 second. She sets the glass down precisely where it was. Adrian sees it. He leans toward her. His voice drops to something below the ambient sound of the room, carried only as far as her ear, absorbed entirely by the space between them. Who did you call last night? Not a question. The architecture of that sentence has no room for a question. It is the shape of a man who has already decided something and is simply collecting the last confirmation. Elena turns to him slowly. Her expression does not change. Not here, she says. Answer me. Adrian. Who? Did you? Call. The table nearest them goes quiet. Not because they heard the words. Because they heard the shape of the words. The pressure inside them. The way a wall goes quiet when something is pressing against it from the other side. Elena holds his gaze. Steady. She has practiced this steadiness the way an injured person practices breathing, consciously, deliberately, because it no longer arrives on its own. She has lived inside it for months, maintained it at a cost that is invisible because she cannot let it be visible. I called no one you don't already know about, she says. That answer is too careful. A careless woman lies loudly. A guilty woman keeps it simple. A careful woman chooses words that are technically true, words with no lie inside them that still reveal nothing. Adrian has known enough careful people, has been one his entire life, to recognize the architecture of a guarded answer the moment it reaches him. He lifts his glass, takes one slow, deliberate sip, sets it down with a control that is more threatening than any violence could be. "We'll finish this later," he says. And he turns back to the room, and the smile returns, and anyone watching from a distance would believe that nothing happened at all. But later arrives before it should. The music shifts to a waltz. Several couples move to the floor. The lights dim to warm gold, and for a moment, just a small, borrowed, dishonest moment, it almost looks like a real wedding. Almost looks like what it was supposed to be from the beginning. Then Elena stands. She touches Adrian's shoulder once, a small, deliberate touch, like pressing a handprint into something you expect will be taken from you, and moves toward the corridor near the east wing. Measured steps. Not hurrying. Not slow enough to seem deliberate. Adrian watches her go. He counts. 30 seconds. 50. 70. He stands. The corridor is marble and mirrors and a silence that the waltz cannot follow. He moves through it like smoke, not hurrying, not slowing, carrying the specific certainty of a man who already knows what he will find on the other side of the door at the far end. The door is partially open. Light bleeds through the gap. He stops. He looks through. Elena stands in the service hallway. She is not alone. A man, late 40s, silver running through his temples, a face Adrian has never seen before in his life, stands close to her. Their voices carry no further than the distance between them. The man's hand rests on her forearm. Not urgently. As if they have stood this close before, in other corridors, in other buildings. She nods once. She passes him something. An envelope. The door swings open. Adrian is through it before the man has registered the movement. The man turns. His eyes go wide and then immediately go blank, the trained blankness of someone who has been in dangerous rooms before and knows that expression is information. He tries to step back. It is already far too late. Adrian grabs him by the collar and puts him against the stone wall once, hard, and the sound ricochets off the corridor like a gunshot in a room with no exits. "Adrian," Elena steps forward. "Stop. Please, stop. Get away from me." The coldness in those 5 words is its own kind of destruction. Not the violence of the wall. The other kind. The kind that does not leave marks where anyone can see them. He looks at the man against the stone. The man's mouth stays shut. Smart. Adrian releases him. Slowly. Deliberately. The way you release something you plan to return to. He turns to Elena. Something shifts in that turn, a gear dropping inside him into a different setting, locking into place. Something that has been sitting below the surface of every conversation for months. Every careful answer. Every moment he looked at her and felt the precise, maintained distance she kept inside her eyes like a room she had locked from the inside. "Come with me," he says. Not a request. Elena follows him back through the corridor, through the door, and into the hall. 300 guests. The waltz still playing. Adrian walks to the center of the floor and stops. He does not raise his voice. He does not make a gesture. He simply stops, in the dead center of the light, and the room registers it the way a room registers a change in pressure, before any individual person has consciously decided to respond. The DJ reads the silence before he reads the room. The music ends in the middle of a measure. Every head turns. Every glass lowers. 300 people hold their breath at the same time without choosing to. Elena stands 2 steps behind him. Her hand has returned to her stomach. Her jaw is set. She has known this moment could arrive. She has mapped every version of it. Prepared herself for the possibility with the specific thoroughness of someone who cannot afford to be surprised. She was never going to be fully prepared. Adrian faces the room. All of it. Every face. Every family. Every man who has stood at his table and spoken the word loyalty like it was a currency they were spending. I want to ask my wife something. The pause that follows strips the warmth from every surface in the room. In front of everyone here. In front of my family. He turns. He finds her eyes. Tell them. His voice is quiet the way a room goes quiet when a door is about to be kicked open. Tell them whose child that is. The hall does not breathe. Elena does not move. She looks at him with something that is not fear, not guilt, not even defiance, but the particular expression of a woman who knew this moment was coming, who stood at that altar anyway, who made vows to a man she was still choosing to believe in even while she was running out of reasons to believe. The look of someone who prepared every argument, marshaled every piece of evidence, and understands now, looking at the specific flatness in his eyes, that none of it is going to land in time. Adrian steps toward her. The hand that has built this city and broken things inside it closes around her wrist. Not gently. A guest near the front rises to his feet. Stops. Sits back down. 2 phones lift above the crowd. A woman near the east window covers her mouth with both hands and does not lower them. Nobody moves. Nobody. Because this is Adrian Moretti's wedding. His hall. His night. His world, built over years, built over grief, built over the wound he has never once addressed directly, and nobody who wants to keep living inside it is going to step into the center of the floor and tell him to stop. Nobody. Except one man. Who is not in the room yet. But the footage is already recording. 3 months before the wedding, Adrian Moretti does not sleep. He sits at the floor-to-ceiling window of his penthouse on the 42nd floor with a glass of bourbon that he has carried from the desk to the window and back again twice without drinking. The city spreads below him like a circuit board, streets running like veins, traffic lights blinking their slow, indifferent rhythm, buildings rising like teeth from a jaw that has been underground for a very long time and is in no hurry. From up here, chaos has the courtesy to resolve into pattern. Pattern is the only thing Adrian has ever fully trusted. Not people. Not agreements. Not the word of men who sit at his table and speak about loyalty the way they speak about weather, reliably, repeatedly, and without any real personal relationship to what they're saying. On the desk behind him, a photograph. Elena. Taken from a distance, the way surveillance photographs always are, by a lens that does not announce itself, from a position that does not exist. She is leaving a cafe near the East Quarter. Folder under her arm. Eyes down, as if she is thinking about something too specific to look up from. She does not know this photograph exists. She does not know about the 32 others filed behind it. Adrian had begun watching her 6 weeks after they met. Not because he suspected her then. Because he suspects everyone. Always. Without exception and without apology. His father had installed this before Adrian was old enough to select a different lens. Trust no one completely. Verify what you cannot disprove. The gaps in a story tell you more than the parts that are filled in. The silence between sentences is the most important sentence. He picks up the photograph. There is a gap in Elena's story. He has been standing at the edge of it for weeks and cannot find where it begins. It is not a lie he can identify and isolate. It is more like a texture, something fractionally wrong about the surface of her that his hands keep finding when they move across it. A resistance. A density. Something present that does not announce itself. He sets the photograph down. He stares at the city. He does not sleep. Across the city, in a neighborhood that is quieter without being cheaper, Don Victor Moretti sits in a steady line wall-to-wall with books he has actually read. Not displayed. Read. There is a difference that the room communicates without stating it. 61 years old. He carries his age the way certain buildings carry theirs, not heavily, but with an authority that comes from having survived every storm thrown at them and still standing in the same position. His hands are the hands of a former boxer, a former operative, a former many things that are no longer discussed in rooms where people outside this family are present. A chessboard occupies the corner of his desk. He is halfway through a game he plays against himself, a habit he developed in a place he does not name and never abandoned because it turned out to be useful. He slides the queen 3 squares. Leans back. His phone buzzes. Unknown number. A photograph attached. Elena Vasquez. Standing with a man in a covered parking structure. The framing is precise. Intentional. This is not accidental surveillance. This is a message being sent to a specific reader through a specific channel, designed to be found. Don Victor looks at it for a long time. He sets the phone face down on the desk. He moves another piece on the chessboard without looking at the board. He already knows more than the photograph contains. He knows who sent it. He knows why. He knows that his son will receive a version of this image, probably already has, and will look at it and see exactly what it was designed to make him see, because Adrian is brilliant in every way except the one that requires stillness, and stillness is what this situation demands. What Don Victor does not know is how long he has before the architect of this situation understands how much he already knows. He picks up the wine. He drinks slowly. He does not reach for his phone. He waits. Elena Vasquez did not come to this life looking for it. She came looking for a name. Her brother Marco was 26 years old when he died. He had spent 3 years inside an undercover operation targeting a trafficking network, careful, precise, committed in the way that only people with a personal reason for being somewhere are ever truly committed. Someone burned him. Someone with access to files that should have been behind layers no civilian could penetrate. Someone protected by the very institution Marco had been working inside. He was found in an alley off a street he had never been to before the last night of his life. The case was closed in 10 days. No arrests. Insufficient evidence. The language of a conclusion that had been decided before the investigation began. Elena read the file until she had it word for word. She traced every documented line. She found, in the margins of the official record, the shape of something that had been actively removed, a gap where a name should have been, a deliberate absence rather than a simple omission. Someone had reached into the record and taken something out. She pulled that thread for 14 months. It led her to a man named Russo. Russo held no official title and needed none. He existed in the ecosystem of powerful men the way a pilot fish exists beside a shark, defined entirely by proximity, never by position. He moved through certain circles the way water moves through hairline cracks in stone, quietly, completely, leaving no clean trace except the evidence of his passage. He had been the one who burned Marco. Elena knew it with the certainty of someone who has spent 14 months arriving at a conclusion from every possible direction. She could not prove it yet. But she was close enough that close had changed the shape of everything. Close had carried her into the social orbit where Russo moved, which was the orbit of Adrian Moretti. She told herself it was only access. A doorway. She would step through it, take what she needed, and step back out. She held that line for 4 weeks with the specific, deliberate discipline of someone who knows that the alternative is losing everything she has been building. Until the night of the storm. Adrian drove her home himself, something he did not do, had never done, would not under any normal set of circumstances choose to do. 40 minutes between the restaurant and her. Building with rain turning the city outside the windows into something gray and formless and honest. He asked about her family. She told him about Marco. Not the operation. Not the 14 months or the gap in the record or the name she was following. Only the grief. The real grief, unedited, the weight of it, the specific way it had altered every room she walked into since the morning she identified his body, the particular exhaustion of carrying something that heavy without being allowed to set it down. Adrian went quiet. Then, flat, precise, with no performance around the edges of it, the people who hurt the ones we love never fully understand what they've started. She looked at him. And she saw something she had trained herself not to look for. Not a man performing normality over a hollow center. A man who had been broken by something and built an empire in the shape of the wound, raised walls over it, installed systems over it, constructed an entire functioning world over the part of himself he had never once agreed to look at directly. She recognized it. Because she had done exactly the same thing, only with fewer resources and more exposure. She should have ended the operation that night. She didn't. 6 weeks later she found out she was pregnant. She sat with it for 3 days. Ran every calculation available to her. Understood, with the clarity that only arrives in the absence of alternatives, that every plan she had constructed over 14 months had just been made structurally obsolete by a single biological fact. She told herself she could still finish it. Before the baby. Before the wedding. Before the life forming around her solidified into something she could not step back from without pulling it all down. She told herself she had time. On a Tuesday morning, coffee half made, ordinary gray light coming through the window, Adrian looked up from what he was reading and said, without a ring, without a prepared speech, without any of the staging the moment is supposed to have, "We should get married." Elena put her fork down. "I'm serious," he said. "I know you're serious," she said. "That is exactly what I'm thinking about." The edge of a smile crossed his face. Not quite reaching. Not quite landing. But present. She said yes. She told herself she could still finish what she had started. She was wrong about the time she had, and she was wrong about how wrong she was, and she would not understand either of those things until the morning she opened the second drawer in his study and found a notepad with her brother's name on it in her husband's handwriting, dated 3 weeks before Marco died. 3 weeks before the wedding, Elena stands in Adrian's study. She is looking for a property document. Misfiled. Administrative. The kind of task that creates the impression of an ordinary afternoon. She opens the second drawer on the left. The document is not there. A notepad is. Small. Spiral-bound. The kind that lives in a jacket pocket and moves from jacket to jacket without being noticed. She picks it up. One name. Adrian's handwriting, compressed, controlled, the handwriting of a man who has never had a reason to make anything decorative. Marco Vasquez. And beneath it, a date. 3 weeks before Marco died. Elena does not move. The room is quiet. The building is quiet. The city outside the window is entirely indifferent. The clock on the desk marks 5 seconds, then 10. She stands in the 10 seconds and does not allow herself to react before she has finished thinking. She replaces the notepad exactly as it was. Exact angle. Exact position. She closes the drawer. She steps back and looks at it from the distance of someone who opened it without looking for anything. It looks the same. She walks out. She does not find the document she came for. That night she lies beside Adrian's sleeping form in the dark and examines the date from every angle she has. It could mean he received Marco's name as a target. It could mean he received Marco's name as a warning. It could mean he issued a warning about Marco to someone else. It could mean something she has not yet constructed. She does not know which. And not knowing is worse than any single answer, because a single answer, even the worst one, gives you something to do. Uncertainty just holds you in place while the clock runs. She starts moving faster. She contacts Santos the next morning. Santos was given to her 8 months ago by a source she has trusted with every sensitive thing she has ever needed to move. Former intelligence. Currently invisible in the way that only people with serious institutional protection can be invisible. Multiple identities layered carefully enough that the people who know him by one name have never seen the outlines of the others. She meets him twice that week. Parking structure East Side, Monday. University Cafe, Wednesday. Both meetings last under 12 minutes. Documents pass from her hands to his. No phones. No digital record. Nothing that follows them out of the room. She does not know both meetings are photographed. She does not yet know who is watching, or that what they are watching is already being assembled into a case against her that is almost entirely wrong. 4 days after her second meeting with Santos, Adrian receives the first photograph. He opens it at his desk with coffee he doesn't drink. Elena. Parking structure. A man. He looks at it without expression for a long time. Then he calls Carver. Carver is his head of security. Former police, current everything else. A man built architecturally for rooms like this one, quiet, precise, and capable of feeling about what he finds or what he is asked to do with it once the finding is complete. He arrives within the hour. Who is she meeting? I'll find out. How long? 48 hours. You have 24. Carver nods and leaves. Adrian turns back to the window. He has always known Elena holds something back. He has not expected full transparency from anyone, he offers none himself, and that particular hypocrisy has never once troubled him, because it is simply the operational reality of the world he inhabits. Everyone guards something. Everyone has a drawer. But this is something larger than a drawer. This is a man in a parking structure at 7 in the morning and an envelope passing hands between people who are not supposed to be in the same frame, and a woman whose eyes are too steady, too practiced, for someone carrying nothing. He picks up the photograph again. Her face is slightly turned from the camera. She doesn't know she's being watched. He realizes, with a clarity that sits uncomfortably in his chest, that he has been hoping she is clean. That is a dangerous thing to discover about yourself. Wanting something from someone means they have leverage you didn't authorize. He puts the photograph away. Carver returns in 17 hours. The man in the photograph, no confirmed identity. Multiple aliases. Government adjacent. The critical detail, that this man works directly for Don Victor, has worked for him for 11 years, that the record is sealed by Don Victor's direct order, is the detail Carver cannot surface. It does not exist in any system Carver can access. Don Victor ensured that years ago. What Carver does include, for documented meetings between Elena and the unidentified man. All brief. All involving a handoff. The man has never approached her residence. 4 times, Adrian says. That we know of. Double the surveillance. I want video, not photographs. 4 days after that, the second photograph arrives. Elena and the same man outside a public records building. Anyone can enter. Anyone can leave with a folder. Except the sender has captured the folder tab. The name on it, Russo. Adrian sits with that image for a long time. Russo sits at his table once a month. For years of business. Not a friend, Adrian has no practical use for that category, but a known quantity. Trusted in the specific sense that means he has not yet done anything unpredictable. Why does Elena have a file on Russo? He runs 3 explanations. She is building a case against Russo for a power above Adrian's sightline. She is working for Russo, running a play inside Adrian's house that he hasn't identified yet. She is working directly against Adrian, using Russo as the instrument. He does not like any of them. He calls Carver. Everything on her. Before she met me. Everything that exists and everything that was removed. 2 days later, Marco Vasquez. Deceased. Former undercover operative. Elena's brother. An overlap with a network that grazed Adrian's territory edge during a 6-month window 2 years ago. A proximity that could be coincidence. Carver does not say it is coincidence. Worth noting, he says. Adrian stares at the name. He had written it once. Passed a quiet word through a channel, 2 years ago, about an operative who had gotten too close to something that needed to remain undisturbed. He had not known the man's face. Had not asked what happened after the word was passed. Had not asked. He sits with that now. The not asking, which felt at the time like operational efficiency, sits differently now that the name is connected to Elena's face. To the flatness she carries when she mentions him. to the specific weight of a grief that has been carried so long it has become structural. He closes the folder. He does not sleep that night. He sits at the window with the bourbon he cannot drink in the city that has never once offered an answer to anything, and he holds the weight of what he knows and what he refused to know together, and he understands, somewhere in the quiet of 3 a.m., that these two things are the same size now, and that they are both the size of her grief, and that he is running out of time to decide what to do with that. The wedding is in 9 days. He says nothing. He folds everything inward, the way he folds everything, and waits to see what happens when the weight gets heavy enough to fall. 5 days before the wedding, Elena is making dinner when she goes to the hall closet for a phone charger. She moves a row of books. The wrong volume shifts. A phone falls forward. She catches it. Old hardware. A prepaid device with no case. She turns it on. Battery at 11%. She opens recent calls. One outgoing call. 9 days ago. A number she does not recognize. She photographs the screen. Powers the device off. Replaces it. Replaces the book. Steps back. Looks at the shelf from the distance of someone who walked past it without stopping. She goes to the bathroom. Sits on the edge of the tub. Breathes through 3 minutes. Counts each breath. Makes each one deliberate, because deliberate is the only thing available to her right now and she needs to hold something. Then she stands. Washes her face with cold water. Looks at herself in the mirror. The woman looking back is the same woman who started all of this. She has just arrived at a different version of the same problem, carrying more than she started with, running out of time in 2 directions at once. She walks back out. Goes back to the stove. Stirs the pot once. Acts like a woman making dinner. That night she calls Santos. She reads him the number. He is quiet for 4 seconds. Don't ask me how I know this. Tell me. That number belongs to Russo. The kitchen holds the silence. The pot on the stove begins to boil. Elena stands very still and understands, in this specific moment, that she is no longer running an operation that runs parallel to her life. She is standing inside both at once. And the wedding is in 5 days. She meets Santos the next morning. He gives her 2 things. First, a name. A man inside Adrian's inner circle. Trusted. Present at the table for 6 years. Has been feeding intelligence to Russo for 9. Second, a fact that makes her chest go cold. Russo has authorized a hit. Not on her. On Adrian. To be executed within the week. Santos looks at her. This changes things. There are no things anymore, she says. You can walk away from this. I have a child inside me. That's exactly why I'm telling you to walk away. She looks at him for a long moment. I'm not walking away, she says. Santos says nothing. He passes her the final envelope, 14 months of documentation. Compiled, organized, sequenced to trigger a response that cannot be reversed or quietly buried once it moves. What do you want me to do with it? He asks. Give me 3 days after the wedding. 3 days and it moves. All right, he says. 3 days. She walks back to her car. She does not know that the parking structure's cameras have been running for 6 days on Carver's order. She does not know that Adrian has seen every meeting, every envelope, every handoff, and has assembled them into a story that is almost entirely wrong. The morning of the wedding, Adrian stands in front of a mirror. Everything is pressed. Everything fits exactly as it should. He looks precisely like what the day requires him to look like. His eyes look like something built to survive, not to celebrate. The surveillance report is in his hand. 12 pages. He has been reading it since 6 in the morning. He has read it 4 times. He knows every word. What it does not say is as loud as what it does. It does not confirm betrayal. But it does not clear her. It describes a woman hiding something large, involving a man with no confirmed identity, a file bearing Rousseau's name, and a pattern of behavior that began before they met. He folds the report. He puts it inside his jacket. He looks at himself in the mirror. He does not know what he is going to do. That is the most dangerous state he has ever been in. Not rage. Not certainty. The specific danger of a man who has not yet decided, holding 12 pages of incomplete information on a day he cannot reverse. He puts the jacket on. He goes downstairs. 2 floors above, in the bridal suite, Elena stands in front of her own mirror. Her mother's ring on her right hand. Pearls threaded through her hair. The dress is everything it was constructed to be. She looks at the woman in the mirror and searches for the one who started this 2 years ago, the one who pulled the first thread and did not know where it would lead. She is still there. Under everything that has been added since. Under the grief she has been carrying. Under the pregnancy. Under the months of careful behavior in an environment that watches everything. Under the love she did not plan for in the man she did not plan to need. She presses her hand to her stomach. I'm going to fix this, she says. Not to the mirror. The veil goes on. She stands for one more moment in the room that was hers alone. She will not have a room that is hers alone again for a long time, and she knows it. She takes one breath inside that knowledge. Then she goes downstairs. The ceremony unfolds in perfect form. Priest, words, flowers, silence in all the right places. Adrian and Elena stand at the front and say the words that are supposed to be the same words but are not, because they carry different weight depending on what you're bringing when you speak them. For her, a promise. Conditional. Contingent on what she can finish before the world around her closes completely. For him, a vow spoken to a woman he is no longer certain he knows. A commitment he is making across a gap he cannot yet measure. When the priest pronounces them married, the hall applauds. Adrian turns to her. He kisses her once. Brief. Controlled. The way he does everything. The moment his lips leave hers, his eyes go flat. During the reception, Adrian finds a moment at the family table beside Don Victor. His father holds a glass of wine he has barely touched. He is watching the room with that geological patience, the patience of someone who has outlasted every storm that tried to move him and has stopped being impressed by new ones. You look like a man attending his own funeral, Don Victor says. The man Elena has been meeting, Adrian says. You know him. Don Victor is quiet. 2 seconds. 3. 1 second too long for a man who does not know the answer. Where did that come from, he says. Surveillance. On your bride. On your wedding day. On a woman I'm trying to understand. Don Victor sets his wine down. He looks at his son, not with disappointment exactly, not with warning exactly, but with something that contains both and something more, something older. Be careful, he says quietly, what you do with information that is only partial. Tell me what you know. Not here. Father. Not here. Adrian. The silence between them holds a world. Adrian stands. Straightens his jacket. He walks back into the room. He does not wait. He is not capable of waiting. He never has been. When Elena excuses herself from the table, he is already counting. He follows the corridor to the service hallway. He finds the man. He puts him against the wall. He brings Elena back through the door and across the room to the center of the floor, and he stops, and the music stops with him, and the room holds its breath. He asks the question. Tell them whose child that is. Elena looks at him. Not with fear. Not with guilt. With the expression of a woman who walked into this moment with her eyes completely open, who made every calculation, who stood at that altar knowing this was possible, who chose to come anyway because the alternative was walking away from someone who was going to die inside a week and would never know why. It is yours, she says. It has always been yours. Then tell me who he is. I cannot tell you here. Tell me here. Adrian. Her voice drops. Not a performance. A woman speaking to a man she is still, in this moment, trying to save. If I tell you here, someone in this room will be dead by morning. The silence shifts. It is still silence. The room is still frozen. But something has entered the air, a shape, an implication, a word that does not fit the story everyone in the room has been assembling for the last 2 hours. Elena holds his gaze. The only person in danger tonight, she says, is you. The hand around her wrist tightens. For 1 second, one single second, something moves in his eyes. Not belief. Not yet. The ghost of a question. A hairline crack in the certainty he has been building for months. Then the report crashes back in. The photographs. The pattern. The months of evidence assembled by the part of him that has never once been wrong about a threat. It comes in like water through a broken wall and the crack closes before it can become anything. Get her out, he says to Enzo. Adrian. I said. Get her out. Enzo moves. 2 men with him. They take Elena by the arms, not roughly, firmly, and walk her toward the side exit. She does not fight. She looks back over her shoulder. She finds his eyes. She does not say anything. She does not need to. The doors close. 3 people in the hall already have their phones out. One of them is uploading before the doors stop moving. Don Victor's phone vibrates 43 minutes after the doors close. He is in the car. He left the hall quietly, without announcement, the moment Elena was walked out. Not from indifference. Because there is a position he needs to be in before the next part begins, and the next part is already beginning. He opens the message. 2 video files. He watches the first. Carver's compiled surveillance footage, the corridor, the envelope, Adrian through the door, the wall. Then the hall. The center of the floor. The question. The wrist. The doors. He watches it completely. Then the second file loads. This one he was not sent. This one was assembled by someone else and routed to him through a channel only 3 people know exists, and none of them are Carver. Different footage. Different angle. Older. A meeting between Russo and a man who has sat at Adrian's table for 6 years. The man's name is Bello. He is passing something to Russo. A document. A schedule. Dated today. Adrian's full movements from the ceremony through the reception through the private exit he always uses after major events. Every detail. Every window. Don Victor watches this without moving for a long time. Then he calls Santos. Santos picks up on the first ring. Is she safe? Yes. The documentation. With me. Ready to move on your word. Hold it. I'm handling the remainder myself. He ends the call. He looks out the car window at a city that continues turning over on itself with complete indifference to everything happening inside this story. He makes 2 more calls. Brief. Each one sets something in motion that will not be undone. Each one closes a door that was standing open. Then he tells the driver, "Take me back." He does not say anything else. He watches the city pass outside the window and thinks about the specific cost of knowing things too late, the way it differs from not knowing them at all, which is worse in one precise direction and easier in every other. Don Victor Moretti walks back into the Vittoria Palace at 11:47 p.m. The reception is technically still in progress, music at low volume, clusters of guests speaking in the careful tones of people who have witnessed something they cannot yet classify and are waiting to be told what it means. He does not announce himself. He doesn't need to. The room registers his entrance the way a room registers a change in pressure before any single person has consciously decided to respond. Conversations pause mid-sentence. Glasses stop. A path opens without anyone being asked to open it. Don Victor walks through it. He does not hurry. He has never hurried in his life. He finds Adrian at the family table. Alone. Enzo and two men stand at a practice distance, close enough to respond, far enough to suggest privacy. Adrian has a glass of bourbon in front of him. Untouched. He is staring at the surface of it with the attention of a man who has nowhere left to put his eyes. Don Victor sits down. He places his phone on the table face up. The video is paused on a frame. Adrian looks at it. You watched it. I watched all of it, Don Victor says. Adrian's jaw tightens. Then you saw what I saw what she was doing. Those 6 words land in the room with a weight that makes Enzo, at his distance, go completely still. She was protecting you, Don Victor says. Adrian does not move. The man she was meeting, Santos, has worked directly for me for 11 years. I placed him close to her 8 months ago, when I became aware of a threat I had not yet been able to isolate or identify. Adrian stares at him. The meetings. The envelopes. The file on Russo. Don Victor pulls up the second video on his phone, Bello and Russo, the schedule, today's date, and turns the screen toward his son. Adrian looks at it. His face goes still in a way that has nothing to do with composure. The stillness of a foundation shifting. Something structural moving beneath the surface. Bello, he says. Bello. A pause. He has been with me for 6 years. He has been with Russo for 9. The table holds the weight of that in silence. Elena found the connection 4 months ago, Don Victor continues. Every meeting with Santos was a transfer of evidence. She has been building a case strong enough to move through channels that cannot be quietly buried. 14 months of work she carried into your life and continued carrying without telling you, because telling you before she could prove it would have put you in the position of acting on incomplete intelligence against a man sitting at your own table. Adrian's hand is flat on the table. She intercepted the contract, Don Victor says. Adrian looks up. Russo authorized a hit on you. Scheduled for today. She found out 3 days ago. She asked Santos to delay the execution window. She needed to get through the wedding. She needed to transfer the final documents and trigger the institutional response before Russo's man could move. The hall is very quiet. She was going to tell you everything after the wedding. Full disclosure. She had prepared it. She knew it might cost her everything, that you might not believe her, that you might do exactly what you did tonight. She came to that wedding with your child inside her, knowing exactly what she might walk into, and she came anyway. Adrian says nothing. She was protecting you, Don Victor says. From the man you trusted with your schedule and your movements and your life. With more loyalty than you have earned. With more courage than you recognized. Don Victor puts his phone in his pocket. He looks at his son. And you put your hands on her, he says. In front of 300 people. On your wedding day. The silence that follows is the longest one the room has held all night. Adrian's voice, when it comes, is stripped entirely down to the question. Where is she? Somewhere safe. I need to. No. Father. No. Not yet. A long pause between them. There are consequences, Don Victor says. Name them. Bello is already being handled. Russo will not see the end of the week. The documentation Elena built will reach every person it needs to reach through channels that cannot be reversed. He pauses. That is the straightforward part. And the rest. The rest, Don Victor says, is yours to carry. And you will carry it. Because there is no other option. He stands. He buttons his jacket with 2 slow, deliberate movements. He looks at his son the way a man looks at something he constructed with his own hands, searching not for pride but for where the flaw entered. There are things you cannot undo, he says. I have lived with several of them. The question that follows is not whether you can undo them. The question is what kind of man you become in the space that those things create. He turns toward the exit. He pauses at the door. He does not turn back. She knew you might do this, he says. She had run the calculation. She saw the exact outcome you delivered tonight as one of the likely ones. A pause. She came anyway. She stood in that corridor knowing you might walk through the door. She stood at that altar knowing you might ask that question. He opens the door. I don't know many men, he says, who would have done for someone what she did for you. Especially for someone who gave them so little reason to believe they were worth it. He walks out. The door closes. Adrian sits alone at the table. The music has been off for a long time. Guests move toward exits in small, quiet groups. Some look at him. Most do not. Enzo remains at his post across the room, watching, saying nothing, because there is nothing available to say. Adrian reaches into his jacket. He pulls out the report. 12 pages. Compiled by Carver. Built from weeks of watching a woman who was protecting him. He holds it in both hands for a moment. Sets it on the table. He looks at it. He thinks about her face in the corridor. That steadiness he could never locate the source of, practiced, maintained, costing her something every time she held it and never once letting that cost be visible. He thinks about the night of the storm. 40 minutes. The rain. The way she talked about Marco, past tense, flat, with the particular flatness of grief that has been carried long enough to become structural, to become part of posture and breath and the way a person holds their shoulders. He had recognized it. Because he was carrying the same thing. He thinks about the notepad. Marco Vasquez. The date. The warning he passed through a channel without asking what happened after. He had not asked. He closes his eyes. He holds that. The cleaning crew begins to move through the space sometime after midnight. Flowers gathered. Glasses collected. The chandeliers dimmed to their maintenance setting, cool, in different light that shows everything the warm glow was covering. Petals on the floor. An overturned chair near the east corridor. Elena's sparkling water glass still at her place setting. Unfinished. Left exactly as she left it. Adrian does not move. He does not call anyone. He sits in the center of what he has done and he does not try to move away from it. He stays with it the way you have to stay with the things you cannot undo, which is to stop moving and face them completely, without the exit of action or argument or the next thing that needs to be handled. Around 1 a.m., he picks up his phone. He opens the video. He watches himself walk to the center of the floor. He watches himself turn to face the room. He watches the question leave his mouth. He watches her face receive it. He watches his hand close around her wrist. He watches the room not move. He watches her be walked out. He closes the video. Opens it again. Watches it again. The third time through, he pauses on her face. The moment just before the exit doors close behind her. The look back over her shoulder. The eyes finding his across the full width of the hall. Not fear. Not anger. Something worse than either. The expression of someone who ran the calculation, saw this outcome as possible, and chose to come anyway. He keeps the screen lit until the phone dims on its own. The hall is almost empty now. One candle still burning at the head table. It goes out. Adrian sits in the dark. And the last thing he says, to no one, to the empty hall, to the city past the glass that has never cared about a single thing that happens inside these walls, is this. She was never the traitor. A pause. I was. If this story found something in you, if there was one moment you felt it before you understood it, drop it in the comments right now. Tell me the exact scene. The exact line. I want to know where it got you. And if you made it to this final word, you already know what to do. Subscribe. Turn on the bell. Because this channel exists for people who stay until the story is finished. You just proved you are one of them. The next story is already written. It will find you.